Hello, friends. We begin a new worship series today with the iconic story of Jesus as the wedding guest that everyone wants to invite, the one who saves the day when the wine runs out. In the economy of Jesus, we are reminded that hope is a resource from God that never runs dry. Just when we begin to fear the worst, Jesus reminds us that there is more good stuff in store. Would you join me in prayer? God of abundance, we come to you today lifting to you our emptiness, our longing, our hoping for a better world. In the midst of our fear, remind us of your transforming and overflowing love, and the jars of plenty out of which we can live abundantly in service to all people, especially those who are struggling in body, mind, and spirit. Amen.
On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to me and to you? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the person in charge of the banquet." So they took it. When the person in charge tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, that person called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first in his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
Last week, a group of us started reading and discussing the latest book by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is a botanist, professor, member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, and sharer of indigenous wisdom. She is probably best known for her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which has been on the New York Times bestseller list for 248 weeks. Oddly, it didn't get there until 7 years after publication. The new book, 8 weeks on that list now, is The Serviceberry, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World. It's a very short book and an easy yet thoughtful read, and you are invited to join us at church on Friday mornings as we read a section aloud each week and share our reactions to it. Serviceberries, in case you've never heard of them, grow on a tree or bush and are also known as shadbush, juneberry, saskatoon, and a host of other names. They grow in every state except Hawaii and every province in Canada, and are a key ingredient in pemmican, an important indigenous food across the continent. They are also great food for birds, deer, insects, and rabbits, as well as humans. But you won't find them in a store. Kimmerer weaves a good deal of scientific observation on serviceberries through the musings of her book, and includes stories about a neighbor of hers who planted and shared an abundant crop of the sweet gems. Serviceberries also serve as an object lesson for the author. just as Jesus taught by urging his listeners to consider the lilies, the mustard seed, the farmer, and the swallow, so Robin Wall Kimmerer invites us, through looking at the natural world, to wonder about what she calls a gift economy. And I'll let you in on a little secret. Jesus had plenty to say about the gift economy too. In response to the book's first chapter, I invited our small group to recall examples of gift economy in their own lives. Maggie Corin talked about the prolific fruit trees in her yard that made the best tasting tart juice, and how the trees gave, and she in turn gave and gave to her neighbors and co-workers, and how people in turn shared plant starts with her. Debbie Palmer shared about the year that Kaiser loaned her services to a community health clinic, and they in turn shared her with the homeless of the community, and how addressing the food needs of her diabetes patients led her to share an opportunity with her neighbors and her church for them to donate fruit from their yards, and how she learned that she needed to share not just her knowledge of nursing, but the gift of herself and her ability to listen to the stories of the homeless clients, along with sharing the fruit. Both these women painted pictures of how the sharing keeps going and growing and building community. Pam Arnold remarked upon the deep connection to the land that she had growing up with such activities as canning, snapping beans, and shelling peas. We all mused upon how we've lost some of that, or a lot of it. Debbie Bramlett shared her observations from living in a cul-de-sac in a small town of people taking care of each other through food, sharing what came from the farms where they worked or from their gardens. Cheryl LaSalle was struck by the idea of enough and how our culture, for the most part, tells us that we don't have enough, while the facts line up that there is enough, if only we will share, and if only we will stop taking more than we need. The key points we gained from the first chapter of the Serviceberry are that gratitude is the first natural response in the gift economy, and reciprocity comes close on its heels. I have found myself jotting down a number of biblical references as I make my way through this book, but today I'll start with the lectionary text for this day. It will serve as an anchor image for our entire worship series, the 6 stone jars from the wedding at Cana, where Jesus, prompted by his mother, turned water into wine. This was his first miracle in the Gospel of John, and along with his multiplication of loaves to feed a crowd in chapter 6, is the only form of Holy Communion that we have in that Gospel. Scholars seem to love diving into and debating the significance of the various details in this story. The number 6, the jars meant to hold water for purification, what was the mechanism behind the change into wine, and the nuances of relationship revealed in the conversations and stage directions among the various characters in the story. Jesus, his mother, the servants, the disciples, the person in charge of the wedding feast, the groom. Our little group got into wondering about good wine and why it was usually served first rather than held back, which seemed strange to some, and which made me think, first, we live in wine country, and second, we are Americans. Our culture makes us look at this story through a certain lens. I imagine that the wedding customs of Jesus' time were closer to those of the potlatch, an indigenous practice observed in many parts of North America and around the world, particularly the Pacific Northwest, and which was declared illegal by the colonizing powers. From 1885 to 1951, potlatches were criminalized in Canada. It was a method of redistributing wealth by putting on grand feasts. The practice guaranteed that no one would fall into poverty, and that represented a threat to an accumulation-obsessed, capitalistic way of life. I think it is significant that the launch of Jesus' ministry, as John tells the story, occurs at a wedding feast, and it is a picture of abundance made possible by the power of God, not to mention the influence of Mom. I think perhaps Jesus was saying, through this sign, as John calls it, serve the good wine now. Forget about holding back. Follow the instructions. Take risks. Pour it out if there is a need. If things appear to run out, look to God. Practice trust, and an abundance will come forth that is worth sharing. We need to celebrate what is right in front of us. It's also interesting that the servants are the ones who know about the miracle, and we are to be servants. Weddings were for the whole community. It wasn't I invite you to this event, so you're going to invite me to the next event, tit for tat, marking off of a check sheet with the same exact measurable gift tally. Not like wedding invitations might be regarded today. Instead, everyone comes. Everyone is fed. Feasting is for everyone. And that's where Jesus shows up, along with his disciples. And his mother, don't forget her. Jesus also keeps the party going. For those who regard the Christian life as one marked by sacrifice and seriousness, is there a message in that? Analysts of literature note that tragedies end with a funeral, but comedies end with a wedding. Tragedies end with mourning and sober reflection on the death that happened to teach a moral lesson. But comedies are marked by the characters often hilariously getting out of scrape after scrape after scrape. Is the Bible a tragedy or a comedy? Recall that the vision in the closing chapter of Revelation is of the church dressed up as a bride. What might it mean that Jesus' first miracle happens at a wedding? And speaking of comedy, at the end of the Gathering of Spiritual Leaders retreat I attended with the bishop and 350 of my colleagues this past week, one of the organizers read from that day's poetry offering from Steve Garnis Holmes, a retired UMC pastor who posts 6 new poems each week on his website called Unfolding Light. This was the poem inspired by today's gospel text. John 2, verses 3 to 5. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to his servants, "Do whatever he tells you." The poem is entitled, Mom Knows Best. Leadership is nudging someone into their next step the moment before they know they're ready. Even Jesus had to be prompted by someone who knew his gifts and who saw the moment. Sometimes we ourselves are pure water, unaware we are about to be turned to wine. God, help me be open to the moment and the nudging of Mother Spirit, who sees. I wondered at the time if my colleague was thinking of our bishop as a mother figure, nudging our conference to take the next step toward healing after a season of deep pain, distrust, and discouragement. Perhaps a Mother Spirit nudge is what we all need as we come out of pandemic isolation and out of election exhaustion and division and fear. Fear marks the scarcity economy. It leads us to grab and hold on and all manner of death-dealing behaviors. The antidote to fear is love, and love is the currency of abundance. I wonder what fear might have gripped the servants in those moments when they watched with bated breath as the wedding steward took a sip from the offered cup drawn from those jars they'd filled with water. And I wonder how their hearts were transformed by what they witnessed. Friends, we need to declare that the party isn't over. We are put here to take care of one another, to practice gratitude and generosity and maintain an abundance mindset. No matter what scariness or scarcity might be around the corner, God is in the house, and God isn't through with us yet. So let's keep on keeping on and let love flow. Amen.
Take my life and let it be dedicated to your praise. Lord, I freely give to you every moment of my days. Take my hands to show your love for the broken and the lost. Guide my feet to follow Christ in the shadow of the cross. Take my voice and let me sing, always only for my King. Take my lips and may they always bring you praise. I'm all yours. I'm all yours, my Lord. All I am, every part. I'm all yours. I'm all yours, my Lord. Take my life, take my heart, take the things that I possess. I surrender all I own. Lord, I give my every thought to be ruled by Christ alone. Take my voice and let me sing, always only for my King. Take my lips and may they always bring you praise. I'm all yours. I'm all yours, my Lord. All I am, every part. I'm all yours. I'm all yours, my Lord. Take my life, take my heart.